Well, I mean, Mido Macia's death has certainly highlighted, it really has highlighted a number of things, violence, brutality that exists in our society. When looking at this incident, what does it say about South Africa?
I think it's such a critical question. I think there are three particular issues that we need to possibly consider here. The first is the behavior of the police officials in this particular instance, and the fact that they clearly abused their authority and power in the way in which they treated Mido Macia. The second issue is clearly the fact that he was a foreign national, and we do need to do some serious introspection about the way in which we as South Africans have been treating foreign nationals in this country. The third, of course, is the fact that the crowd who was watching this felt completely disempowered and almost paralyzed to be able to actually intervene in this particular matter. And so questions must be asked about all of us as South Africans, as what do we do in situations like this when we are confronted with such horrific acts of violence? How do we respond, and what does this say about our humanity when we observe these matters taking place and feel paralyzed so that we are unable to act? So these are some of the complex questions I think we need to deal with in this particular case. Yeah,
well, I mean, in this particular case, the police are saying that he resisted arrest, and this led to the situation that we found ourselves in. But still inexcusable.
Absolutely inexcusable. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights sets out very specifically how arrested and detained individuals should be dealt with, and the police, in this video at least, clearly have violated this. Having said that, I think that the majority of police officers, I would like to believe, are doing the best they possibly can under very difficult circumstances. There are these cases such as the Andries Tatani matter. We've seen this in the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, and there was a case we dealt with at the Human Rights Commission involving a young man, who was unlawfully arrested and detained by police officers for allegedly gesturing with his middle finger at a police convoy carrying the president in Cape Town. And so these are some of the incidents which lead me to believe that there is a systemic challenge within the police services that needs to be addressed. It's not only dealing with this particular matter, but I think dealing with police brutality in general across the police services is going to be required in this instance.
The behavior of the police, is it perhaps a response to the brutal society that we're living in?
I think that's certainly part of the equation. On the other hand, I've also noted that the police do receive training in human rights and policing. So they should be acutely aware of the Bill of Rights and what's contained in the Bill of Rights. But it seems as if there's a problem between understanding and conceptualizing what's going on in the Constitution on the one hand, and actually implementing what they have learnt and acquired through their training on the other. And that gap needs to be assessed and looked at, and we need to try and understand what the actual problems are. In case studies that have been done previously and psychological studies that have been done, it seems that one of the biggest problems is that the conditions within which police operate, the hierarchical structure and nature of the police service, as well as the organizational culture, is what actually impacts and limits the ability of the police themselves to implement the values that they've been taught through their training program. So leadership needs to be looked at as well. And unfortunately, at the Human Rights Commission, we've had the occasion of trying to deal with the Minister of Police on two matters, on the Andries Tatani matter as well as the Makwele matter, and found that the Minister was unfortunately very reluctant to cooperate with the Human Rights Commission. So I believe it says something about the leadership of the police that needs to be seriously looked at as well.
Yeah, well, that definitely is, it's an issue that needs to be spoken about. But I mean, when you look at that video footage, and what's quite frightening about it is that it is so open to the public to witness, to view, to see how the police are treating individuals. It's almost that South Africans just take a stand back and watch it and think that this is now the norm, that this brutality, it's almost like we've become insensitized to it, because as South Africans, what choice do we have? If they get involved, they'll get treated in the exact same way. I mean, this is not happening behind closed doors. This is happening in the streets of an exceptionally busy area of Daveyton.
And I think that's a very, very critical issue. It means that we do need to reflect and introspect as South Africans about what we are observing in our society. On the one hand, the person who took this video, I think, is a very brave individual for coming forward and sharing this with the press. On the other hand, I think the crowds that were watching and observing this taking place must have been so traumatized by what they were seeing that they felt paralyzed and were unable to act. But it's also this victim mentality that we appear to have developed as South Africans. I think we need to try and break out of that. We need to try and break out of the paralysis that has engulfed many of us and try and move to ensure that we uphold justice. We must see these victims and in the faces of our own lives and be able to try and deal with that in the best way possible.
How are human rights going to be dealing with this very quickly?
It's Human Rights Month at the moment, and we are going to be paying a lot of attention towards human rights very generally. We plan to hold a session on the 19th of March, close to the 21st, which is Human Rights Day, to try and highlight some of the challenges being faced across the country. And we hope through this education and advocacy campaign, more South Africans will become aware of their human rights and their right to dignity.
All right. KM Ahmed, who's the CEO of the Human Rights Council, thank you very much for talking to us here on Morning.